Welcome, welcome. If you are watching this video, it's because you so wisely registered for an upcoming virtual training. And what I always like to do is hit the ground running, making sure we get you up to speed so that when you're on the virtual training for whatever the amount of time might be, 30, 40 minutes, that you really have a solid foundation. So first, let me just introduce myself. My name is Nicole Jouette Nelson. I'm an executive coach and founder of Nelson Consultants. I've traveled the world and coached over probably 33,000 hours of high potential professional. So I'm happy today to share with you some insights that I have gained in that time. And you know, Master Coach Rich Litvin was quoted as saying, "A single insight can change a life forever." So my goal today is to change your life and leadership right now. So whether you're aspiring to get a leadership role, whether you are relatively newly appointed leader, or even a veteran one and an executive, this insight I'm about to share really will be valuable. So what I did for you today is to create an infographic outlining the 4 problems any organization actually faces. And I first just want to credit Angelique Brewers, who is the CEO of the Corporate Agent. She's actually the first person who introduced me to this bird's eye view of organizational problems. And you know, why does it matter to even look at this in the first place? Well, firstly, if you're an executive and you have your old hat at strategic planning, you know what often happens to us, frankly, I'm sure you can agree that if you're in the plane flying at the 10,000 foot view, sometimes it's really possible to lose sight of where you are on the map. You know, where are we in relationship to the ground? And if you're a new leader or an aspiring one, you know, this is an important skill too, to be able to get this map and understand what problem am I actually trying to solve right now with this situation in front of me. So what are the 4 problems of any organization? Simply put, they're either people problems, they're process problems, they're product problems or service, of course, if you're a service-based industry, or they're profit problems. And this is important to understand because with the exception of profit problems, where you may in fact get, you know, financial experts in to take a look at your debt strategy, your pricing strategy, figuring out how to price your products and services, all of these others honestly can be traced back to just one problem. You know, the product problems of innovation and how do we sell this thing? How do we market this thing? The process problems of how do we build this thing, perhaps, or you know, other process workflows within departments. All of these can be traced back to people problems. Now, there is really an interesting roadblock to this. I was recently working with an organization who did a merger acquisition, and they had adopted a new team, but they were really challenged with getting the team to hop on board and collaborate with the other parts of the organization. And it was really fascinating because, you know, the senior executive in charge basically had the mindset that as long as we introduce process always trumps people and all will be well. And, you know, I was actually brought out there to present to this group about the process changes that this person was interested in implementing. And 4 years later, the deliverables were consistently missed, communication breakdown was consistently happening, and literally almost nothing in that particular issue that the executive was trying to solve actually got healed or fixed. Now, what would happen if we all understood that at the base of all these 4 problems is the people, and we handled the people problems first? Well, I mean, let's get honest, that feels daunting, right? I mean, it's quite a thing to try to assess quote unquote people problems. It feels kind of messy, and it does require some masterful skill sets with somebody who understands human growth and potential and can have a keen view of the misalignments. And what are those misalignments? If you look at the top of the infographic, we're taking a look at the collective, the entire organization. Of course, people problems often can be measured in output and productivity loss. You also can notice people problems when there isn't a defined mission or vision statement. And, we have actually a joke at my firm that most of my clients actually appreciate, which is that, you take any company's mission statement and you take maybe 25 of them from different companies and throw them on the ground, you probably couldn't even find your own if you tried. They just sound so dang similar, right? And then we've got organizational culture. And this is an important distinction to make. How do we define culture? A lot of people throw the word around a lot, but don't understand what it is. And culture really is the components of how the collective thinks, how the collective behaves, and how the collective engages with one another. So we're talking about, how many human bodies are at your place of business, and collectively, how do they think? Collectively, how do they behave? And collectively, how do they engage with one another, right? Not so easy. It feels overwhelming to sort of address all of that. And how do we address it? It has to be at the individual level, right? We have to check in with each individual and check in about their alignment with their role, their alignment with their manager and team, their alignment with the culture. And so what I've seen in probably the past 20 years is, we won't rise above human today, no pun intended, but as we're talking about people problems here, but we have a tendency to just throw a Band-Aid on it. There's this idea that the easier, softer way is that if we, come up with a great new product and just sell more of it, this is going to get solved. Maybe we come up with a new sales strategy, but we don't assess the sales people who are going to have to execute the sales strategy. Maybe we get a new design team who's meant to learn the latest and greatest, latest innovation strategies and ideas for coming up with new features and functions of a product, but we don't assess the people who are responsible for that. Same thing with process. How many initiatives have you folks tried to initiate in the last year to get a certain outcome? But here's the thing, research shows that if you can sort of withhold from doing the perceived easier and softer way of just slapping on a new initiative, a new process initiative, or a new product initiative, innovation initiative. What happens is if you actually get down to the building blocks of every organization, which is the people, you actually have the opportunity to increase your individual people's commitment and their discretionary effort to their role by as much as 125%. This is from a Harvard Business Review research article that they had actually surveyed 19,000 employees about their 4 core needs at work. And similarly, if you are able to bring in a master of human growth and potential and sort out these misalignments with role or manager or team or culture, you can improve these individuals have 54% greater focus. So that's substantial. And could you imagine if you were able to increase commitment to, a discretionary effort at the individual level by 125%? I'm not saying you can necessarily win every time with every individual, but take the number of folks on your team and multiply that out. Just think of the processes that could get created and actually executed and follow, the products that could be created or marketed in a new an innovative way, and therefore the profit that could be realized, right? So I hope you will think a little bit differently when you're just about to implement a new idea, a new initiative, and kind of benchmark it against these 4 problems. Check out where you are on the map and keep an eye on your inbox. We're going to have a part 2 of this pre-webinar series that will just set you up for even greater success when you come on to the webinar training that you registered for. Until then, if you have any comments or questions, feel free to reach out to me directly, and I look forward to speaking to you on the webinar.